the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
All right, good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here.
Welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg
Hey,
here.
what do you think about that?
No announcer guy. We couldn't get a crazy announcer guy to come on here. I like how I call him crazy. But we could not get him to come on.
That's still coming through. This is
Something's
awesome.
wrong with the computer over here. Surprise, surprise.
Well, it was a good idea in practice. The idea there was that because things have changed here in the Spooky Studio, we were going to try to do things a little bit differently, and we were going to actually use the internet for our opening theme because I don't know how to plug in the iPod anymore. Oh, a lot has changed in the week that we've been off here in the Spooky Studio. Let's see, the cranes are gone for some of these microphones, so we can now see each other. We don't have to look around cranes, and we actually have a new board here that we're slowly trying to figure out how to work. That would have been a good idea to try to send an email out or something. Maybe at least a training seminar. You're gonna have to get a lot closer to your mic, by the way, now, Moniz.
I think I can handle it.
Okay. And so we come in, we have this new board, we have a new design for the studio. A lot of the old equipment has been taken out and replaced with new stuff. And we're looking around figuring out, how do we do this now? Because not only do we have the program here on WBSM, but we broadcast live on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com as well. So it's a matter of being able to set up the cameras, being able to pull the audio from the different sources that we do. But I think we got it going. We'll ask the chat room there how the audio sounds because they're getting it direct from the board. So it should be a lot better than it's been in recent weeks, months, years. And here, with our headphones, it sounds a lot better too. And what's exciting about this now is hopefully it means things won't fire off on their own. Hopefully we won't have, pots that won't work. And we have to shake them. I mean, whenever we wanted to run the iPod anyway, we had to shake the pot to make it work. So hopefully now everything's going to work out just great now and going forward. So, we got a lot to talk about tonight. I just like to hear the sound of my voice now coming out of this new board. But we do have a guest here with us in the studio. Did I mention you, Moniz, by the way, at the beginning of the show?
You may have.
If I didn't, I apologize. Riding alongside with me, as always, in the shotgun seat for this program is science advisor Matt Moniz. The silent assassin Matt Costa is working, and I bet you he's sorry he's missing this.
I'm sure he is.
He's going to be really excited when he comes in here and sees this for the first time because he's going to be like, wow, it looks like the stuff I learned about when I went to school. I think he learned about the old board, too. It was just in the history of broadcasting course.
Well, this one looks like it was made at least within the past decade.
Yeah. I would say that, and now I probably shouldn't drink this neither, but I need it. So, we do have joining us in the studio a guest here. He's an old friend of mine, actually. It's probably been about 20 years since we've seen each other. But, hold on. I think I got you on the wrong. Try again.
How about now? Does that sound better?
All right, I figured out which numbers the mics are in now, which, for some reason, that doesn't make sense. That's number 4 instead of number 3.
Okay.
So they don't really go in chronological order, but that's
okay.
all right. Hey. But we have Doug Engler joining us from liveparanormal.com. How's it going, Doug?
Going fantastic. Excited to be here.
Now, when we were, just 8th graders hanging out, we never really talked about sharing an interest in the paranormal. In fact, back then it was probably a little bit more taboo to talk about it than it is now.
Oh, definitely.
Now, you just have to...
Okay.
We have a... Even though the board is new, the sensitivity on the mics is still just as bad.
Alrighty.
But, I mean, I remember talking about, we talked about NASCAR, sports, all kinds of other things, but the subject of ghosts never came up.
No, but I've been interested in the paranormal for years But back then, when you're in 8th grade, a lot of people don't take you seriously when you think about it or when you're talking about it or stuff like that. The most that you ever saw of any ghost things was Unsolved Mysteries back then.
Yeah. I do remember we did used to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend Vic, too, was a big Unsolved Mysteries fan. And him and I spent a lot of time back then talking about time travel and things like that. But, yeah, we didn't talk about... And meanwhile, while all this was going on, I was having the experiences that I had growing up at my aunt's house. And I wish I had known, because we could have talked about that stuff. I would have had somebody. Oh, nice move, Moniz. Who's the guy that forgot to turn off his cell phone? Well, the guy's got like 18 of them, so...
Yeah.
There's an emergency at the nuclear reactor. They need Moniz to invent a new procedure to stop it. All right. Do you need to go? You can go out and take a call if you have to.
No, it's all set.
Okay, so whoever that is that's listening that decided to call Moniz, he just said you're not as important as Spooky Southcoast. Oh, what was that? That was Doug.
I didn't even realize I had the ringer on.
Oh, there he goes.
Nope, it's not me.
All right, good. It's probably the battery.
And I actually don't have the ringer on my phone. So.
AM 1420
And-
WBSM.com online.
So this really is a spooky South Coast show.
Oh, so new equipment doesn't matter. All right, this
Well,
is
it is a new phone too, so
fantastic radio here. All right, getting back into the topic of the paranormal while I try to figure out what it was that made that happen. It's a different world than it was back then, and I actually am happier that kids that are growing up and have these experiences can talk about them now when they might not have been able to previously. But it would have helped, our generation to be able to share.
Definitely. I mean, I've been having experiences even long before I moved out to this area when I lived back in the Attleboro area. And my first experience, I was at a friend of mine's house. He lived on one of those dead-end streets near this center of the city of Attleboro. And I walked into his kitchen to grab something to drink, and his mother had a pack of cigarettes on the counter. It was like a brand new pack with like one missing or something like that. And I saw the pack open, a cigarette come out, get lit, and smoked in front of me. I was the only one in the room.
Wow.
And I ran out of there and told him about it, and he didn't believe me. And his mother didn't believe me because she was upstairs at the time. And she went and checked, and sure enough, there was a cigarette missing out of the pack, and they were blaming me for smoking it, but I didn't smoke at the time. I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old, so they chalked it up to like overactive imagination. Maybe she smoked it and didn't realize it, something like that. So they just kind of laughed it off, and then about 2 weeks later, I was there again because it was a good friend of mine, and he and I were both headed into the kitchen, and we saw a knife go flying by the doorway. And as we looked in, it was hanging out of the wall.
Whoa.
They believed me after that, and they moved about a month later.
I can't imagine what that must have been like for you to be that age and to see all this stuff happening. Literally, like the cigarette was being smoked in front. Could you see the smoke being drawn in?
You could see the tip of it light up like it was being smoked, and you could see the smoke you could see it change direction. Mm-hmm. And it was the freakiest thing because at the time you're trying to make sense of it at 8, 9, 10 years old. You're trying to realize what's going on. You have no idea. And then when people are questioning it, saying, oh, it's just overactive imagination, you're seeing things. A lot of kids growing up have imaginary friends. Well, could it be something like that he's thinking of? Because I know growing up I had imaginary friends. I don't know if you did or not.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Actually, now that's the only kind of friends I still have.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good because they never argue with me. I'm always right with them. But
and you have an scapegoat,
Yeah. And who did it? Not me. But some people too feel that the imaginary friends that children have are just the ability to perceive spirits before we've had that wall built up around us by everybody telling us that they're not real.
And that's just it. Children are, especially at a young age, are so susceptible to outside influence. I've learned through many different experiences and teachings that the human brain is a computer, and as you go, you can program it certain ways. That's why we go to school. We go to school to get programmed to learn math, to learn science, to learn how to talk, things of that nature. And eventually you hear for long enough that ghosts aren't real, they don't exist, it's just Hollywood movies, that stuff doesn't really happen, there's no such thing as the boogeyman, there's nothing under your bed. and that part of your brain shuts down and says, you know what, that it's not real. It was just an imaginary friend, so there's no need to take any stock in it. And a lot of people grow up believing ghosts aren't real. You know, I have friends who don't believe in it, and I have friends who have had so many experiences they want to pull their hair out.
And what's interesting is you see that moment when somebody who is a disbeliever becomes a believer. We see it all the time with our Legend Trips events, where there's always at least one in every group that swears that nothing's going to change their mind, and then they have that.
The ardent skeptic winds up walking out being the firmest believer generally by the end of the evening.
Oh, I love skeptics. I love skeptics.
That could be a whole other show, because Moniz has a theory on skeptics.
Well, true skeptics allow possibilities. People that call themselves skeptics that bash on this stuff are actually cynics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which there is a big difference.
So how do you take that childhood interest and experience and go from that to working with live paranormal?
Well, what's funny is that after that happened, I packed it away. You know, it was an experience that I had. You get told it's not real, it doesn't exist, like I said before, and I just kind of blew it all off. And then probably a couple months later, I was walking, still in Attleboro, to a friend of mine's house, and a beam of light came down from the clouds behind me and followed me as I was walking, which I thought was weird. I sped up. It sped up. I stopped, and the light continued and passed right over me. And as the light passed over me, it felt like somebody literally walked through my body.
Wow.
That night, I found out my grandfather died.
Wow.
So I believe that was his way of saying goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, when they have a loved one pass, different things occur. Flash forward to, I want to say, 97, 98. A cousin of mine was killed in Mansfield in a car accident. She was 17. She was 16, 1 month before her 17th birthday to the day. And that night, I spent the night down in Mansfield at her house, and I saw her walk into the room, look at me and her sister, wave, and walk out of the room. And ever since then, I have nosedived into the paranormal like you wouldn't believe, and it's amazing the stuff that I've ended up experiencing since that. And that really was, she kind of opened a doorway for me that I kicked open.
Mm-hmm. She just opened it up a crack, and you said, I got to see what's on the other side of this.
Oh, yeah.
And now with live paranormal, for those who are unfamiliar, why don't you kind of describe a little bit about what it does? Because it's more than just internet radio shows.
Yeah, Live Paranormal is actually a website that you can go to. It's the owner is a guy named Rob Scherzak. I'm sure I butchered his last name, but he's a great guy. He does a lot for Live Paranormal. This weekend, actually, they're celebrating Show 3000.
Wow.
All weekend long, they've had celebrity guests from Ghost Hunters to Ghost Hunters International. I can be heard on there occasionally on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock on Cauldron of Knowledge. I'm on with Lexi Doyle, who hosts that. Friday nights, starting back up in October, my friend Susie Lewis hosts Helen Back Radio. Susie is a demonologist.
Weird.
And on Sunday nights, my friend Clarissa Vasquez, who's been on Spooky Southcoast a few times, hosts Periscope Radio. And that can be heard at 11 o'clock. But there are many other hosts. We have 2 to 3 shows a night, every night, all 7 nights during the week. We interview people. I personally have interviewed Barry Fitzgerald from Ghost Hunters International.
He's such a great guy.
He's awesome. Bill Murphy from Fracked or Faked. I can't believe how smart that guy is. I felt dumb talking to him. Not that it takes much to make me feel like, right? But
well, you learn quickly in this business when you're in the host seat. You know, you learn when sometimes you need to kind of just shut up and let the guest talk.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I had the honor of interviewing Denise Gossett, actress. She's done Nickelodeon shows. She just had a movie come out with Mel Gibson called Get the Gringo.
From Wareham to Westport, we've got you covered. AM 1420, WBSM.
The best part about that is I can't figure out why it keeps doing that. Like the program doesn't show where it's doing it, so I can't turn it off. Nice. Sorry.
That's all right. Hey.
Computer voice guy might keep interrupting you from time to time.
Hey, that's okay. I'm used to it. Hell and Back Radio, we're known for the malfunctions, technical difficulties. We've had everything on Hell and Back Radio, from power outages to the phone call disconnected to the host couldn't even log into the screen that she needed to get into to even start the show. So we have a lot of fun with that.
Well, one of the things that I find the most interesting about the Live Paranormal and other sites like that is the fact that now you don't, in the old days when we were younger and we were trying to learn about this, you had to wait every night for Coast to Coast. You had to tape it if you were sleeping. We didn't have podcasting. We didn't have internet streaming. And now people can get their hands on this stuff pretty much any time.
Yeah.
And so now you're finding, like we find out with this show, that we have people listening all over the world, and you start scratching your head and being like, what is it about this show that makes people want to listen to it worldwide? But it's not. It's the content. It's what you're talking about, because the paranormal is global right now.
It is, especially with Ghost Hunters International. All the places that they go is phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the Ghost Hunters, all their shows. I even watched GHA when it was out. I watched both seasons.
I didn't watch any of that.
So
we actually, at least myself personally, I kind of stopped watching a lot of the ghost shows. Which, sometimes that hurts us when we have to discuss some of the things that happened on them. But at the same time, like, you find that you get too caught up in that mentality. I mean, how do you keep yourself separated, though, from getting involved in some of the drama that we hear about in the paranormal community?
What I like to do is I watch the shows, but I watch them objectively.
Mm-hmm.
I try to watch to get ideas on, when I investigate, what are people on TV doing? Is it effective? What could be CGI? What could be edited in? Because, let's be honest, everybody's skeptical about all those shows.
Oh, that was me. I'm just as guilty as everybody else.
I thought somebody was firing lasers at me for talking about this, but...
No, that's our UFO shows.
Which we will be talking about UFOs later on in the program.
Nice segue.
I like UFOs, too.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to somebody from Plymouth. Felicia Femino is her name. She actually saw some UFOs last week in the skies over Plymouth, so she's going to join us later on to talk about that.
Oh, fantastic.
And then at the bottom of the show, we're going to be talking, because when you get to the bottom of the show, and it's the bottom, who else do you want to bring on but Chris Balzano? Scraping the bottom of the... No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Our content director, Chris Balzano, will join us later on. We're going to talk about all these weird stories in the news with zombies and such. But, getting back to what you're talking about, Doug, with... the need to keep a skeptical eye toward these programs. You mentioned that you actually go out and investigate.
Yes, I have been lucky enough to have been in a lockdown at Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I was there probably, I want to say it was about 2 or 3 months after the TAPS group was there. TAPS didn't get much when they were there, and the group that I was with, we probably had about 30 people, so it was a good-sized group, which you always worry about contamination with a group like that. But we split up into groups, and I actually, when I went off, I had 2 other people with me, and every place we went to, we couldn't hear any other investigators, and we had activity every single time.
Wow.
From I was touched twice to... There was probably a group of about 10 or 15 of us in a room in the hospital wing of the building. And we would whistle, and in one corner, we'd hear a whistle in response, but there was nobody over there. So I'd set a recorder over there. Then we'd whistle again, and it would come from the other corner. So I had my video camera, so I set that up in the other corner. And on the voice recorder, you can hear the whistles clear as day. Now, some of the people with this group, it was... the Central New York Ghost Hunters. Stacy Jones is the founder of that. Some of her most trusted people walked around it because we had a lot of new faces, and we wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody playing, being goofy, playing, oh, I'll whistle back. And so they were being watched without realizing that they were being watched to make sure it wasn't one of them. And it continued from different ends of the room that nobody was at. And it was phenomenal. This was back when they still had the Christmas tree room. I heard after interviewing Sharon Coyle, who's the new owner of Rolling Hills, that the Christmas tree room has changed. They've been doing some renovations. And while in the Christmas tree room, they had trigger objects set up, some cars on the floor, a stuffed animal on a chair, things like that. Well, I saw the stuffed animal actually move from the chair to under one of the Christmas trees. And the kid that was with me saw it move from under the Christmas tree to beside the doorway.
Nice.
And, of course, my video camera is being recharged at the time.
That's what happens.
That always happens. You get the best stuff when you're not prepared.
And that's why, you know, we were talking with Pete Stagman on our last show of Parahunter, and he was telling us how he just, when he goes into a location now, he just recorders on the minute he goes in, even while they're setting up, because they find that that's when they get a lot of stuff. And we've had that happen. You know, we've had things go on when nothing's ready to, you know, and we'll go into like Lizzie Borden's, we'll bring all of our portable studio and we'll get ready to record a show. And of course, naturally, you'll be hearing stuff right and left happening all over the house when you're in the process of setting up. And then once you get all the mics on and live, the place goes silent. But what can you do?
Well, they always say the ghosts don't go on cue. You know, they go when they want to go. And, you know, a lot of people just don't. They always say, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, how come you can't just tell somebody to do something and they do it like that? Well, I'll tell you what, you walk into any store and tell a customer to do something and see if they do it.
Yeah. Or depending on, you know, the personality of the spirit that you're dealing with, I mean, they could be just wanting to mess with you too. I mean, it could be intentional that they're going to do it when you least expect it. The issue that we always find too when you're conducting an investigation is not so much that you can't get it to perform on command for you, but the fact that sometimes you can't get it to happen at all. At least, and Moniz and I, you know, we're probably each about as psychic as a brick. But we were talking earlier this week when I was doing Periscope, and you had mentioned that you have actually become kind of attuned to these, and you think that you have some abilities.
Yes, I am very energy sensitive. I have called myself a psychic. I do it more for my entertainment. I don't expect to be right when I go off of what I feel, but I usually can sense thunderstorms before there's a cloud in the sky. I can walk into a room and tell if it's tense or not without anybody saying a word. I have tested myself at many different locations. At Rolling Hills, I did not do any psychic ability or anything like that, especially with such a big group and a lot of people that are just not, you know, I don't want that as part of my group right now. So I try to keep it hidden from most people, but I do enjoy, like I said, when my cousin died, she opened the doorway for me, and to this day, I can still in contact with her.
And so many of the psychics that we have on this program mention the fact that we can all have these abilities if we can just tune in and use them effectively. I know that, you know, we as I mentioned to you on Periscope, we did have one night where I tried to be a psychic just for a few minutes to see if anything could happen, and I actually remote viewed the room of a caller, and then I quit because I was like, you know what, 1 for 1, let's just stick with that.
Sometimes that's the best way.
Yeah, let's just stay with that. It worked once. Let's not push the envelope.
Most recent thing that happened with me was I was talking to the gentleman's name's Brian Brigham of Despair Paranormal down in Florida. I got his name through a coworker of mine. It's one of his good friends. So we actually had him and his group on Periscope a few weeks ago. And I was talking to him on Facebook, and he was telling me how he lived in a haunted house and started giving me a little information, and all of a sudden I just got tuned into his house. I could see his house in my head. And I asked him, I said, now the woman that haunts the location, I said, she's behind you right now. She is she seems pleased that you're taking care of her house. She likes you, but she's very stern about it. And he goes, oh my God, she haunts the room behind me. He goes, that's where she mainly hangs out, is that part of the house, like the room directly behind me and around there. And I said, also, you have a male spirit there that he's in the doorway. I want to say it's a doorway to your left. Now, mind you, he's in Florida. I'm in Syracuse. And I've never met this person in my life. I have really no clue what he looks like aside from a picture on Skype and Facebook. and never seen his house. And he goes, "Oh my God, the only door to the room is on the left." I said, "There's a man standing there. His arms are crossed." He goes, "Well, can you tell me who he is?" I said, "The only information I'm getting from him is you know who he is. You just don't want to believe it." And that weekend they were the team was investigating his house. He came on the radio show a week later and said, "With the information that you gave me, it was one of the best investigations we've ever had."
Wow.
He goes, the male that you felt, he goes, "Nobody's ever told me that they felt a male presence at my house." He goes, "The male presence that you felt was my grandfather." He has a psychic as part of his team who he was asking questions about if he felt them. And that's when the psychic on his team mentioned that the male spirit was a family member, and he'll know who it is because he has something of that person's. And it turned out to be his grandfather, and there was a long history that goes back. I don't want to delve into it because it's his personal information, obviously. But he didn't want to believe that it was his grandfather until he found what his grandfather was talking about. I guess he had a certain item that was given to him by his grandfather, which he didn't realize he still had, and that's why his grandfather was still around. So I was able to tune into that. Now I can't. It's the first time that I've been able to channel that via Facebook, but I can usually get energy through TVs. I can get the energy like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventurers.
So you could just be watching something and something could kind of pop into your...
It's amazing that I'll watch a Ghost Hunters episode or something like that, brand new Ghost Hunters. My wife will be sitting with me and I'll be like, they're going to have a loud bang because there's something in the corner. All of a sudden you just hear bang. And of course, the most common phrase heard on those shows is, "Oh my God, did you hear that?" Mm-hmm. That could be a drinking game.
Oh, I think it's probably emerged as one. You know, it's kind of like on this show, you know, every time we mention a computer issue or every time the computer fires off, you know, you take a shot. You'll be drunk by the first hour. Woohoo! We should do that. Well, if you have any questions,
that's the backyard barbecue show.
And you know, Moniz, I meant to mention to you, I saw it on the screen. I saw you kind of doing the creepy face there for a second. I need you to do me a favor. Can you explain to everybody watching on the video later on what that means? Because they don't see the chat. So was that... Or do you want to just leave it at creepy face?
Leave it at creepy face.
Okay. That's the one thing that you don't remember is when you are playing to the camera a little bit, you don't realize that later on it's not going to make much sense.
Yep.
So, but hey, that's why, you know, you keep seeing me look over here trying to get myself more into the shot a little bit too, but we got to pretend like they're not there. You know,
I've noticed myself occasionally look at the camera, but it's I have a camera at home when I do the live paranormal shows. It's my own personal computer. I'm on Skype. I get Skyped into the shows. Sometimes they allow webcams. Some shows don't. Mm-hmm. So I have a little webcam set up, and usually the cameras are in the chat room of Live Paranormal. And the great thing about Live Paranormal is it isn't just ghost shows. It's UFOs. It's Bigfoot. It's all different realms of the paranormal world. It's everything from Reiki people to psychics to artists and we interview a wide variety of people, which has been phenomenal.
And the good part about that format, too, is being internet radio, you're not bound by the same restrictions as we are here.
Yep.
So, as we mentioned, you know, on Periscope, we kind of got to make sure we keep the language filters on here.
Yeah, I have to be on my best behavior, I know.
But with the internet format, I mean, you can... You know, when something really surprises you, you can say an honest to goodness, unadulterated, holy, because that's the way that you feel.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes here we have to hold it back a little bit. Well, if you have any questions for Doug, if you want to talk about Live Paranormal or just some of his work in the field, you can give us a call, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. You can email us spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com, or you can post the questions in the chat room on spookytv@spookysouthcoast.com. As we did mention later on in the program, coming up in the second hour, we will talk with Felicia Femino, who had a UFO sighting in Plymouth over the last week that made the news. And then speaking of stories that made the news, later on in the program, we're going to have a Balzano Breakdown from our show's content director, Christopher Balzano, and we're going to talk about some of these strange stories that have been in the news lately. Man, I can't believe the stuff that's been coming across the newswire. We do a segment here that we call The Week in Weird, and this might be the weirdest week in the history of the show.
And I probably could add to it based off of what we Cauldron of Knowledge on Thursday. Lexi and I were talking about some of the stuff you're gonna cover in the at last hour, and I learned a couple of new events that had happened as well. So
awesome. Yeah, so be looking forward to that. Later on in the show we'll get your thoughts as well, but feel free to call in with anything paranormal. Again, the numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Let's see, we have a copy to give away of the book Cincinnatus, the book that we discussed on a previous episode with our guest Rusty McClure when we talked about Coral Castle. This is Cincinnatus, A Secret Plot to Save America. And this is a signed copy, signed by Rusty. I read the book. It's a great book. I didn't read this one. But Rusty had sent us a case of books, signed books, to give away, and I had forgotten about them. So we're going to start giving them away. Every few weeks we'll have one to bring in. So we'll do that a little bit later on in the show. And while we have a minute, I do want to pimp a little something here. On the SpookySouthcoast.com website, you'll see a link to my son's 24-hour baseball fundraiser. Now, it's Wareham Little League is trying to raise money to help with the league and to make some improvements around the field complex. And what it is they're having a 24-hour baseball game next weekend. And the way it works is they start at 10 a.m. on Saturday, and they go all the way through overnight until 10 a.m. on Sunday. And they're going to have camping overnight at the field, all kinds of stuff going on. But they're raising money to benefit the league by this online fundraiser. And so many of our listeners have already donated, and thank you so much. We appreciate it. But we do have, if you donate $50 or more, my wife is going to make you a batch of those cookie brownies that we talk about at all our Legendships events. That's worth it for a $50 donation. That
hell yeah.
Also helps Wareham Little League. And if he's one of the top 5 fundraisers, he actually wins an iPad 2, which I'm going to borrow every Saturday night to come in here and help with the show. So it's like you're making a donation toward helping Spooky South Coast, because right now I can't see the chat room when I'm sitting in the seat. Moniz is directing the show with the laptop, and he's got access to the chat. I'm over here looking at the studio computer, which does not connect to the Zat chat that we use. So being able to bring in that iPad 2 would help out immensely. So donate a little something. Help out the league. And plus, of course, my competitive nature, we want to win. We want to be in the top 5. We want to be number 1. Then he gets to go to a Red Sox game, too. And we've never actually gone to... He's been to like 2 or 3 Red Sox games, and he's never been able to go with me. Because usually my wife goes with him, and I drop them off, and then I go hang out somewhere, and then I pick them up again after the game. So if he's the number 1 fundraiser, he gets a 4-pack of tickets, and we get transportation to and from the game.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and a $50 food voucher. So, yes,
there you go.
Donate money so that I get to go to the Red Sox. $50, that'll get you 2 slices of pizza and a bottle of water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Living top shelf.
Absolutely.
If they still sell pizza there after the Pizza Day massacre,
yeah,
a couple years ago.
But we'll see if we can get him at least in the top 5. So again, just go to SpookySouthcoast.com or go to my Facebook page. I post a link up every day to make a donation. Any amount is appreciated, but $50 or more, you will get some cookie brownies, and $100 or more, who knows? Maybe I'll even come over and mow your lawn. All right, we have a call. Let's see if we can do this. We'll see if it works. Let me first try turning on the phone. There we go. Slide that slider up. Button is red. Okay. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast with our guest, Doug Engler. How are you? Hello? Once. Twice. Hello?
Nope.
All right. You know what? I'm not taking responsibility for that one. I did everything I was supposed to do. Look, that light's on. This light was on. I turned it off. All right. Moving on. Again, if you want to call in, the numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Now, Doug, you had mentioned to me that you're going to be doing your own program on Live Paranormal.
I am in the works of having my own program on liveparanormal.com. Haven't finalized anything because the site owner is extremely busy, especially when getting ready for this 3000 show weekend. I know all weekend he's had guests on the shows from Ghost Hunters at Ghost Hunters International, and some other celebrity appearances as well. So trying to finalize. Plus, I was planning the trip out here from Syracuse, and I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun being a Red Sox and Patriots fan in Syracuse. I have a blast with it. I get so much crap, but I can give it right back.
Well, we should also say, too, that, you didn't make the trip all the way out here just to do our show. You're here for a very special reason.
Oh, yeah. I have to embarrass my niece, who graduated from Middleborough High School today. Samantha, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
I can't believe that they grow up too damn fast.
That's true.
Really.
That's true. And it's only a matter of days or weeks now until Matt Moniz graduates from high school, so...
I hope.
Maybe
this is the year.
He had to start the whole Billy Madison process.
Oh, okay.
Start with kindergarten and then work his way back. So I
thought he ended up getting stuck with the Beavis and Butthead routine where they kept sending him back a year because he still hadn't learned.
He won't. Yeah, he just sits in the back of the classroom going.
yeah.
The cool thing though is that we do talk all the time on this program about how this area has such a footprint in the paranormal community. There's so many great investigators that come from here. I mean, of course, we have Taps in Rhode Island, but we also have so many coming from the New England area. John Zaffis, Rosemary Ellen Guiley lives here now. There's just a strong... we're even sucking ghost hunters from across the country and bringing them over to the Eastern Seaboard. So there's such a good community here already. And you can tell that there's something different about this area. I'm sure living out in the Syracuse area, you know that when you come back here, the energy is different.
Oh yeah, and this area is where I experimented the most with my abilities and where I learned to fine-tune my abilities. I've found places in Carver that are highly active. I've been to places in Wareham that are highly active. Plymouth, half of Plymouth has activity that people would never even suspect. I'm not talking about Plymouth Plantation or anything like that, but downtown Plymouth, that big grassy hill, has so much energy emanating from it.
Coles Hill, yeah, Burial Hill as it's known, yeah.
Because of it's a burial. A lot of people go there and never even realize that it's a grave.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but from what we learned doing a Haunted Plymouth episode, it was the Indians used it to bury the dead even before the Pilgrims arrived.
Yep.
So and that's one of the things I was just working on this week. Is I was talking to some people from Plymouth who are going to be coming on the show somewhat down the line. They actually run the Jenny Grist Mill and the Jenny House that's attached to it. And, we want to have them come on to talk about the history and the tours that they do there and their preservation work. But I said to them, if anything ghostly goes on, just let us know. And they said, no paranormal goes on there. And I find it hard to believe that you can be in downtown Plymouth and not have paranormal activity going on, especially being right across the street from the cemetery there.
And I don't know how many different shops and stuff along the main street there have activity that goes on, but they don't say anything because it being taboo or because of the area or whatever. They don't want to be known as a tourist attraction for ghosts. They want to be known as a tourist attraction for the history of the Pilgrims and things like that, which you can understand and respect, especially if you're a respectable person in the field of the paranormal. You know to respect people's privacy. If they don't want something known, you don't say it. And there's too many young groups out there that don't understand that yet, that make us look bad in the paranormal world.
That's true, yes.
Thanks to the TV shows and stuff. Anybody who has $50 can go to the store, buy a voice recorder, get a cheap camera or something like that, go out to a cemetery and go ghost hunting. Now, I don't recommend doing that unless you have permission to be in the cemetery at certain times. I mean, during the day, usually you won't have a problem, but if you're going in at night with that stuff, you will probably have police intervention unless you've notified them ahead of time.
Just takes a couple of phone calls to protect yourself. And
I mean, it really is amazing that if you take 1 or 2 minutes, you can save yourself hours of hassle.
And what's funny about it, too, is you see this new generation. We are up again. We have about 5 minutes in this hour, but we get into this new generation of people that are interested in the paranormal, and it's not that they want to pick up a EVP recorder, a tape recorder, and go capture EVPs, or pick up a video camera, or do this. They all want to go online, buy the Mel meter and all the latest equipment, and then they want to run into places acting like Zach Bagans, and that doesn't work.
No.
That style works for them because they have permission to be in these locations. They're in that lockdown mode, and they can go in there and act that way. If you just go into a place, a random supposedly haunted location, and start running around acting like Zach, people are going to look at you and be like, what is this guy's problem? Because the way that they act is not necessarily respectable to a lot of these locations. I mean, and they know that. They take slack for that all the time, and they face it head on. But that's what you have to be aware of, is you're going into somebody else's place, and you need to kind of conduct yourself in the fashion of no different than if you were there for any other type of business. All right, let's take this call. Let's try to take this call and see if we can do it. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast with Doug Engler. How are you?
Hi, crew. Hi, Doug.
Hi.
I'm from Syracuse. Do you live there now?
I do live in the Syracuse area. I moved out there about 7 years ago from this area, actually.
What made you do that?
Go on.
I went the other way.
To be honest, my wife is from that area, and I just fell in love with the area. It's just so laid back, and the cost of living is 10 times cheaper.
Doug, you can just admit it. You can just say you had to do it because your wife made you.
Actually, I did it more because I wanted to. I had to get away from Massachusetts. Massachusetts was driving me nuts.
Well, I'm afraid half the population that used to be there when I was there has gone elsewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm probably one of the exceptions to the rules. I actually moved to one of the snow belt capitals of the world.
No, you're right. You go south of there, anything up, it's beautiful. But this place you're calling Rolling Hills, can you tell me approximately where that is in the area?
It is around the Batavia. It's actually located in the town of East Bethany, just on the other side of Rochester. It's probably about 2 hours from Syracuse.
Okay, that's pretty far out. Yeah.
And they do frequent events out there all the time. There's always stuff going on there.
Oh yeah, we actually have a live paranormal event that's going to be coming up. The tentative date is August 4th, but nothing's been finalized yet, so I don't have a whole lot of information on that. The site owner is trying to get all the information on that finalized. So tune into liveparanormal.com for updates on that.
I've heard many tales from people who lived along that I knew that lived along the old Erie Canal of hearing and seeing things, especially this area east of Syracuse.
Oh yeah, down by Chittenango, there was a lot of stuff.
Chittenango Landing, and
I've actually been able to go on a ghost walk there with the CNYGH, and I didn't pick up anything on the recorder or camera, but we did see a shadow on the other side, and there's not even a walkway on the other side where we were at. So we saw somebody walking.
The towpath,
yeah.
Isn't it also? I was gonna say, isn't it also common reports of seeing and hearing horses and stuff?
Yeah.
They used to haul the
boats. They used to use horses and mules to, from what I understand, they used to use horses and mules to walk the pass alongside to move the barges up and down the canal.
Those are the stories. Those are the stories I heard most often. And night, sometimes people see the lanterns that they'd have on the barges, just lights. Wonderful sightings by many people.
Yeah, I wasn't lucky enough to catch that. I think somebody else in our group was able to, but I personally didn't see that, so I can't really. I know that it's things that have been seen, but.
Well, there's so much to do there with the heritage of the Onondaga and all.
Oh yeah. And also, I know in Syracuse the Landmark Theater is haunted, the Palace Theater is haunted, and I know Landmark Theater hosts public events almost every year, at least once a year.
All right, so you got to get out there and check out some of those for yourself.
I don't live there anymore, but I have many friends that still go there, and I get to visit every once in a while. But anyway, thanks. Thanks for the info.
You.
Thanks for the show.
Have a great night.
Thank you for the call.
All right, we are coming up on the end of the first hour, but when we come back in hour number 2, we'll be joined on the phone by Felicia Femino, a Plymouth resident who recently sighted some UFOs out there. So we're going to have Matt Moniz ask her some pertinent questions about that, and we'll discuss those sightings as well. And if you've experienced those sightings as well, feel free to call in the second hour, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We'll also be joined by our show's content director, Chris Balzano, for a Balzano Breakdown on all the weird zombie, face-eating, intestine-throwing, brain-eating news that happened over the course of the past week. So stay tuned. We'll be right back coming up after the news with more here on Spooky South Coast.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420. WBSM, a Cumulus station.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Great interest in a new cancer drug.
PD-1 helps the body's immune system shrink tumors without the side effects of more traditional chemotherapy. Maureen O'Grady is battling lung cancer and took part in a clinical trial.
Chemo, after a while, accumulative chemo, you feel like you have flu-like symptoms. I mean, from fatigue, nauseousness, a loss of appetite, and now I wake up every day and I feel fine.
Doctors say the drugs worked in a wide range of cancers. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
A hormone-blocking pill approved last year for men with advanced prostate cancer seems to help a wider group of men who were given it sooner in treatment. It's Johnson & Johnson's Zytiga. 1,100 men were in that clinical trial at UC San Francisco. An army of 1,100 firefighters with 9 helicopters and 2 air tankers battled the largest wildfire in the U.S. in New Mexico's Gila National Forest. ABC's Clayton Sandell.
It's an out-of-control monster. New Mexico's biggest fire ever, destroying a dozen homes, torching more than 350 square miles, an area bigger than Dallas, Texas. Flames driven by hot, dry winds. It may be burning in an isolated area, but already this year, wildfires have blackened more than 700,000 acres. 10 states are facing above normal chances for big summer fires.
Thousands of Egyptians still crowd a central Cairo square before dawn after former President Mubarak was found guilty of not stopping the killing of protesters and sentenced to life in prison. Mubarak and his 2 sons were found not guilty of corruption. The admitted killer of the unarmed Florida teenager Trayvon Martin has until Sunday afternoon to go back in jail in Sanford, Florida. And legal experts say the credibility of George Zimmerman could become an issue at trial after the judge revoked bail, saying Zimmerman and his wife lied to the court about their finances to get bail. You're listening to ABC News.
At Advance Auto Parts, we don't do anything just part way. We go full throttle. We don't just sell you some oil. Oh, no. Now, you can get a Castrol GTX conventional oil change special for just $20.99. Plus, enter to win the $15,000 Castrol Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes. Thought your garage was pretty sweet? Well, wait until you see it totally pimped out. Service is our best part. Advance Auto Parts. See store for details. No purchase necessary for sweepstakes. Visit CastrolUltimateGarage.com for program rules and to enter.
And now Geico presents 30 Seconds with Maxwell the Pig.
Hey everyone, I'm Maxwell, and my life is kind of awesome because whenever Geico wants to talk about their new mobile app, they're like, hey Maxwell, you feel like coming to the studio and talking about how the app lets you manage your policy, and get roadside help and even customize it with your favorite Geico character? And I'm like, maybe. Are there going to be snacks?
Everything you love about Geico, now mobile. Download the new Geico app today.
The U.S. is trying to get Russia to help pressure Syria to stop its bloody crackdown on rebels and protesters. The Obama administration warning of possible blowback from a computer virus that targeted Iran's oil industry.
The Department of Homeland Security is warning American businesses that the new virus, known as Flame, could have unintended consequences. It could boomerang online, though the government assures U.S. companies that no infections have been discovered so far inside this country. Suspicions persist that the U.S. government, working with Israel, is responsible for secretly creating and unleashing such cyber weapons, the kind that infected Iran's oil industry. Homeland Security describes Flame as an espionage tool that uses encryption to break into computers, recording audio and keystrokes. The feds insist its origin is a mystery. Joan Bennett, ABC News.
Fighting back against a proposed ban on supersized sugary drinks proposed by New York's mayor, a nonprofit funded partly by the food and restaurant industry. A full-page newspaper ad depicts Mayor Michael Bloomberg as a nanny. The ad says New Yorkers need a mayor, not a nanny. Rick Berman, Exec Director of the Center for Consumer Freedom.
The ad really is designed to suggest just how bad off we've become as a society, where the government of the city of New York, one of the biggest cities in the world, is now concerning itself with the cup size of drinks.
Mayor Bloomberg says the move is only to educate. This is ABC News.
Do you have unfiled tax returns or owe the IRS or state more than $10,000? If you don't take action now, your tax problem is only going to get worse. Seizure of property, bank levies, wage garnishments, and potential criminal prosecution. Call the experts at U.S. Tax Shield for help at 1-800-334-5070. Our tax advisors will review your case for free, inform you of your rights, and give you a guaranteed quote. And we have an A-plus rating with the BBB, so get protected. Call U.S. Tax Shield now at 1-800-334-5070.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
I don't believe it. My savings are gone. They're gone.
You're kidding.
Nope, they're gone. They're gone.
Okay, all right. Think about it. Where did you have them last?
I remember I was home, then I took them, and then I spent them on that vacation to Aruba. Then I bought this miniature suit of armor I saw in the in-flight magazine.
And that's the last you saw of your savings?
Yes.
This is so weird.
I know, right?
Weird? Not really. Not saving now means no money later. You'd be surprised how quickly a little money from every paycheck can really add up. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
The armor is cool, though. Oops. I think I broke its gauntlet.
You broke my favorite part.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Now, after mowing the lawn, at a barbecue on Hey, when do you crave the refreshing taste of iced tea? Twisted Tea wants to know. After mowing the lawn, at a barbecue, on a really hot day, think about that same satisfying glass of iced tea, but with a kick. Twisted Tea is a hard iced tea that's made from beer, but tastes like real iced tea. And nothing satisfies like an ice-cold Twisted Tea. The next time you and your friends are looking for some refreshment, but you need a little kick, grab a Twisted Tea, the refreshing hard iced tea that tastes like real iced tea.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Drink responsibly.
In 1966 in Anchorage, Alaska, a talented child was born. He would go on to be one out of only 11 Alaskans to make it to the major leagues. The odds of him striking out more than 3,000 hitters? 1 in 33 million. The odds of this pitcher being selected to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game 6 times? 1 in 48 million. The odds of this fast-balling philanthropist winning the World Series 3 times? 1 in 3 million. The odds of this man having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Hi, I'm Kurt Schilling. Learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Autism is getting closer to home. From 1 in 5,000 only 20 years ago, today 1 in 110 children are diagnosed. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
Welcome to Spooky Southcoast. the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. And we have joining us in the studio from liveparanormal.com, Doug Engler is here with us. And we are talking about the paranormal as we do each and every Saturday night. We had a great discussion in the first hour with Doug about his work with Live Paranormal. Be sure to check out the website and follow along with some of the shows, and stay tuned for Doug's show, which will be coming soon to there as well. But one of the things that happened, we're going to be talking a lot about news that happened over the course of this past week, especially a little bit later on with our show's content director, Chris Balzano. He'll be joining us for a Balzano Breakdown, a patented Balzano Breakdown of the face-eating, intestine-throwing, brain-chomping, just degenerates that were in the news all this week. But we have joining us on the line, we have a guest. Her name is Felicia Femino, and she's from Plymouth. So we're keeping it local here on Spooky South Coast tonight. And sorry, I had a little bit of trouble there turning everything on. Good evening, Felicia. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're glad to have you here on the show. Now, I saw the story about the UFOs because some of our local friends and listeners posted it up on my Facebook wall, and the story actually broke on the Wicked Local Plymouth website, which is the site for the Old Colony Memorial. I mean, how did it come about that you had this sighting? Why don't you take us kind of through what you experienced?
Well, basically what happened was we were outside, around dusk. We were cooking like burgers and hot dogs. My mom and a good friend of ours, and my 2 little sisters and myself. And when our close family friend saw orbs, just like the orange orbs, floating, kind of like flying, and across the sky over the trees, probably maybe a couple miles up. And it was just so weird. And so we saw a couple in triangle formation, and they kept coming, and we counted 14 of them.
Now, when you said it was around dusk, and it was, were they bright enough that you could make them out clearly? Because you posted the video up online on YouTube, and that's, of course, been picked up by the news outlets that are reporting the story, but they're kind of hard to make out in the video. But with your own eye, how luminescent would you say that they were with the naked eye?
Oh, no, they were very clearly seen. There weren't even really any clouds in the sky. The video is actually a poor representation of what we saw. But after searching a little bit, I saw a video of a sighting in Missouri, which is it's basically identical to what we saw, because it was very clear. They were a lot bigger than what you see in the video. And,
Well, I saw that today. I saw that there were sightings elsewhere at the same time. So, to me, that just makes it so that you can throw out some of the usual debunking attempts that the skeptics are going to throw at you. And even you asked it yourself, with the idea of the paper lanterns, the party lights, the party lanterns that people are firing off now. And so I know that you actually did some due diligence as somebody like Matt Moniz would, and you actually called the airport to find out if there had been any kind of craft flying over.
Yeah, I did. And I got a hold of air traffic control streams as well, of pilots flying into Logan. That was interesting, too. I wanted to do whatever possible to find a logical explanation for it. And I knew as soon as the guy who answered the phone at the airport, as soon as he said he didn't know what they were, I knew it was interesting. I knew it was going to be weird.
And so when you decided to take the story to the news media, how did that come about that it became known to them? Did you contact them? They had mentioned that you were a journalism student.
Yes, this fall.
So, was it just your natural inclination to kind of spread the word of what you saw, being of a journalistic nature?
It actually just kind of happened by chance. I was at work. I'm not going to mention where I work, but I was at work, and Emily Clark, who wrote the story, we kind of know of each other, and I've talked about journalism and newspapers with her before, and I mentioned the lights, and she seemed very interested, so she told me to send her an email and send her the videos, and so I did, and I wasn't even expecting to get any press at all. I just thought it was interesting, and then she turned it into an awesome news story.
Now, I'm watching the video on YouTube, and for those in the chat room, they've been asking about where they can see this. You've posted it up on YouTube under the name Felicia Femino, your name, of course, and it's also linked up on the Wicked Local Plymouth website. So if you just go into Google and type Plymouth, Mass UFO, this video is going to be the first thing that comes up. And I'm watching the video, and you can see, as you mentioned, the triangle formation of these lights. But there seems to be some erratic movement of these lights. I don't know if that's because you're moving the camera around or if the lights themselves are moving around at that speed.
No, you know what? I'll tell you what it was. I was trying to figure out how to zoom on the camera, and it was an iPhone, and I was tapping it. So I didn't have a steady hand, and it looks as if it was a laser pointer, in the sky. I could see where that would come from, but I'm telling you, they were pretty steady. They had a path, so I do apologize for the shakiness of the video.
Oh, no problem. I mean, it's something that happens to anybody that's in this situation of, you're just trying to capture this moment and be able to have some kind of proof that it happened.
Oh man, yeah.
What's the response been from people now that this story is broken?
It's mixed, but for the most part, people are very interested and curious. I have had people try to debunk it. I've actually had people really upset about the fact that there was some cussing in the video. Had I known that a lot of people would be seeing it, probably would have been different. So I guess I apologize for that. But
you don't have to apologize for that.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of people are goofing off too on comments, which I thought were pretty funny. But for the most part, I've been getting comments from people who really know their stuff. People who work with weather balloons and, somehow connected to, airports. And they're all telling me that it's a very interesting case. It's not like something they see every day. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And I know a lot of people are quick to say, the Plymouth, Mass area, it's not really known as a UFO hotbed. But, of course, Matt Moniz, my co-host here, has been investigating UFOs for decades. And this area actually does have quite a bit of UFO activity.
Actually, it has quite a bit.
Really?
Oh, yeah. From the tip of Cape Cod all the way up into Rockport, Mass. This whole coastal line of eastern Massachusetts has been a hotbed for actually past 300 years historically, and we have records going back to journal entries. Governor Winthrop actually has stuff from 1680.
And Felicia, here in this neck of the woods in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, there used to be a big radio antenna they called it the Martini glass, because of the way that it was shaped. And it was actually,
Round Hill.
There's rumors that Colonel Green, who actually built this, was using it as a way to kind of contact UFOs, in addition to radio broadcasts. So there's a lot of sightings down this end of southeastern Massachusetts too. So
that's fantastic.
Now, Moniz, do you have any questions about the site? I mean, I know you've had a chance to see the video, but do you have any questions about the sighting itself?
I've had the chance to see the video on my iPhone, which is not exactly the best, so I can't get any real detail from it. I would like to have her describe what she heard and what she felt when she was watching it, and if she's able to determine approximate size and distance.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds, is it?
Yeah, in terms of approximation. Okay, well,
let me ask you this. What detail about it sticks out the most in your mind?
Just the fact that, it seemed so organized, as if they had a path, and it was just, they were going wherever they were going to go, and really I felt, I didn't even think that it was a big deal. Whatever it was, I don't think that whoever was controlling it thought it was a big deal that everybody saw. You know?
Okay.
Just like they were doing their thing.
No, yeah, I get you.
I
Definitely wasn't. They weren't trying to be covert at all.
All right. Can you best describe the colors?
It was mostly like a really bright, kind of like, it had orange to it, but it was like yellow too. It was like a bright yellow orange.
Amber?
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably the closest you can come between yellow and orange would be amber.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a problem. That's actually one of the most common colored that's reported. Sound.
There was no sound.
Okay. Now, are you assuming that's because of the distance involved?
No, actually, I was kind of shocked by the fact that there was no sound because they were relatively close.
Define close if you could for me. This is radio, so I need you to verbally describe.
Yeah, I don't. She's like,
yeah, okay.
you have to excuse
right.
Moniz. He nods at drive-thrus.
All right. Well, I did mention, I was on another radio station. I mentioned 1,000 feet, which is absolutely wrong. I would say, actually, it was probably a couple miles up.
A couple miles up?
Maybe like a mile or two.
Okay.
Definitely not as high as like a commercial, jet.
Okay.
And maybe a little higher than a low-flying plane.
Okay. The average plane flies at about 1,500 feet. Small single engines between 1,500 to 8,000, depending upon where they're headed to.
But at the same time, where you live, Felicia, you must be used to that type of sighting.
Yeah.
with
How
the Plymouth
close are
Airport.
you to Plymouth Airport? Exactly.
Oh, I am. I'm off of Carver Road, so it's basically like parallel to the airport. Not far at all. Probably like 5 minutes.
Okay, so you would be used to seeing planes come and go from Plymouth Airport, and you know what they look like and sound like.
Absolutely, I hear them all the time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is what I'm trying to rule out. Now, did these lights themselves seem like the structure or part of a structure? Do you understand the question?
Yes. The lights themselves just seemed like their own individual structures.
Okay. How big would you say they would be?
Oh, if I were
at the distance you were looking at, would they be the size of the head of a pin? Maybe the size of a small penny or what have you? It's hard to tell with the video.
I'd say the size of probably like a penny.
Okay.
From where I was.
From where you were standing, they were of significant size in terms of their looking at them from the ground, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just sounds like it had to be something that was completely soundless, being that close.
That was the weirdest part.
Right. Now,
one question that I have, and I'm not a UFO investigator by any means, but one question that I would ask is, obviously, it's dusk on a late spring, early summer evening. What was the environmental reaction to it? Did you still hear, crickets chirping? Did you still hear bugs buzzing, birds calling? Was there all that stuff still going on, or was it silent?
It was just quiet. I didn't notice. I was more preoccupied with what I was seeing in the sky, but there was no noticeable change. Like nothing was just completely silent. But it was just kind of normal. There wasn't anything really going on.
Nothing in your environment changed around you, is what you're saying.
It didn't seem to.
Okay. Now, you said you saw close to 17 of them?
14.
14. Okay. Thank you. And did they change their relative position to each other, or did they remain a constant equidistance apart, or was
that was the weirdest thing that we saw, was that in the second video, part 2, that I put up on YouTube, what was weird about it was there were two that were flying very close to each other, and at one point they actually joined together. And I didn't see this in this. I was focused on the camera, but in the video, when they join together, like a big red kind of like combustion happens for like a brief second, And then, then they just were one, from what I could see. And then, and the lights seemed to disappear after they just kind of went a distance away.
Now, did they take off at high speed, or did they just blink out?
I did notice acceleration and changes in altitude a little bit, but they did just kind of blink out.
Okay.
When the sighting was done.
What's interesting is, we had, and to me it doesn't sound like, the party lights, the Chinese lanterns that have been responsible for sightings lately, but, we had that spin come out right away when we had this similar sighting over New Bedford a few months ago. And right away there was the immediate spin comes out, the immediate discreditation of this is a UFO sighting comes out, and we haven't heard any of that in regards to the Plymouth sighting.
Well, I went to investigate that sighting you were talking about. I talked to the principal person involved, and what he recorded on video was only a tail end of an entire encounter that he had. These other lights were at a distance over the cooling towers, but what him and his friend had happen above him was of a very large, significant nature, which in no way could have been construed with anything like a party light. But unfortunately, like I said, hindsight's 20/20 when you're watching these things and then things move on. Oh, I've got a camera phone. Let me pick it up and actually start recording. I mean, not everybody's, got the presence of mind to pick up the camera just as a car accident is happening.
Yeah.
It's something similar.
Felicia, have you heard anybody come out with any possible explanations for this? Anybody trying to discredit your story?
I've heard a couple. I've heard some seem more legitimate than others. I've heard lasers on a small, low-flying cloud. I've heard that. I've heard paper lanterns. I've heard RC helicopters, and a lot of people were very quick to dismiss those, which I thought were interesting. But then I kind of backed it up with my evidence that I came up with on my own before the story even came out. And then I've heard theories about it being aircraft, military aircraft, or drones, something like that. But nobody has come out and said that's absolutely what it is. It's just speculation.
Well, I hope that as you go forward with this, and I'm sure, being a journalist in training here, that you're going to make sure that you stick to the story and keep asking questions. And I know Moniz is going to keep looking into things too, because that's just what he does.
If she's amiable, I'd like to sit down and talk with her and view the video firsthand and see the location if she's up to it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'll connect you guys off the air and during the course of the week, and hopefully you can keep us up to date with what you find.
And I did have one question for you. Has anybody else come forward saying that they saw the same thing that you did that night?
Yes, actually. After I posted the video, within a couple hours, I got somebody contacted me through Facebook, and she was the one who came to me with the air traffic control website, and together we went through it, and we found the exact clip.
All right.
And so, yeah.
All right. I got a question for you. In the area where you live, are there gas stations or other businesses, or is this a rural community that you've witnessed from?
No, I'm pretty close to the highway. I'm pretty close to a large, outdoor shopping mall and a lot of businesses.
All right. Now, being in, let's call it journalism right now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about going to these businesses, in particular to their security desks, and asking to see their video from the night surveillance footage to see if they captured these objects on their external cameras viewing over the parking lot for that time?
I didn't think of that.
You're welcome.
Weather Service, too. I know that they have, I think, 2 or 3 cameras located around the Plymouth area, including one at the airport.
Another one you also may want to talk to is the Forest Service, because they have the fire monitoring towers that are out there that usually have cameras mounted up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll let you guys work on that together, and please keep us up to date.
Awesome.
And definitely keep posting them if you get more information on it or more video footage. If you can get the permission, post it up on Facebook. I haven't seen it personally. It's the first I've heard of it, but I'll definitely, when I get home, check it out.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Future Pulitzer Prize winner Felicia Femino. Thanks so much. Have a good night. All right. So that was interesting, Moniz, to see how you break down. We've done this a few times. We've had reports on the show, and to watch you go through the process of the questions that you ask in trying to determine this.
Well, what I try and do is ask the same question sometimes in a couple of different ways to see how the person reacts to the question. And you kind of jumped me on one of the other questions, like, oh, okay, you'll follow it up for me. Fine, thank you. But what it is you're trying to get the most information out of the person as possible that's had the sighting. And you start with the thing that they remember the most and work your way backwards, just like you do in ghost hunting.
Definitely.
Same idea. I mean, with UFO sightings, things are a little bit different because you're dealing with stuff generally externally. Ghost hunting is usually happening inside the house, but the principle is the same. What stuck out the most in your mind? What can you tell me about the salient details? The color, shape, size, direction, speed, sound, smell. In some cases.
Yep.
What makes a difference with cases like UFOs versus ghosts is not always does UFOs happen in the same place. Whereas a haunting, it's a haunting. It's pretty much, anchored to the building or land or what have you.
All right. Well, from one news story that came this week, broke this week, to another, we have joining us on the line for one of his patented Balzano breakdowns. We have our very own Spooky Southcoast content director and basically the light of my life, Chris Balzano, joining us on the phone. Good evening, Chris. How are you?
Evening. How are you?
Oh, we are spooktacular as always.
First, let me just say how enjoyable it was to hear Moniz break that stuff down, and I think that can really be a little 5-minute guide to how to interview someone who's seen a UFO sighting. So, Moniz, kudos to you on that one, brother.
Glad you guys appreciated it. I mean, I just wanted to keep it simple and get the basic information. I mean, when I sit down with her later, I'll get more details, but you get basically the senses out of the person. I asked what she saw, what she felt, what heard, and things like that. And, well, if she's tasting the stuff, I don't want to know.
Well, Chris, we have you on to talk about some pretty strange news, and normally if we have you on, it's there's bound to be something strange that pops up. And I gotta say, I don't think it's a coincidence that the first of this triumvirate of really weird tales over the past week or so, I don't think it's a coincidence that it comes from Florida.
Yeah, and it came to in Florida as I was on a zombie hunt myself, doing a little my first 5K, and then of course the next morning you texted me the report, and it came out, and it was absolutely horrific, and it was the case of the man who was shot repeatedly by the police after they saw him consuming someone, and he was literally bent over, like bringing up pieces of this man as he was eating him, and the initial reaction was very odd. I thought is that most people were not moved by the horrific nature of it, but people were making jokes of it. I was going to post something that the next day, I'm all for a good joke, but every single talk radio person, unfortunately, Southwest Florida seems to have completely gotten rid of all kinds of radio that's not talk radio now. All of them were doing the same jokes about it, and it was kind of weird. And then as the week advanced and we were finding out some more details about that one and these other ones were coming out, people started to get a little freaked out. And of course, the people who are really out there started calling it the zombie apocalypse. I'm not quite sure I'm ready for that kind of intensity, but it is pointing to something very weird going on.
I mean, we have this guy in Miami who you kind of gave a quick rundown about it, but it was a guy who was chewing the face off a homeless man, and when he was asked to stop, he didn't. They opened fire. he kept eating. So finally they plugged him a few more times, and
there is a video that exists
from the Miami Herald, which this happened right across the street from the Miami Herald, conveniently. But we find out now that this gentleman who was having someone else's face for his evening meal was probably high on what are called bath salts. You know, this methamphetamine that's made and sold in convenience stores, actually.
Right.
And
it's illegal in Florida, by the way.
Is it illegal?
It is illegal in Florida. The problem is, and Moniz might be able to talk about this, and maybe even some of the effects of it, is that they can very easily change very small ingredients to something and then just remarket it as another name. And there's already, it's in the same place, in the same location. People aren't necessarily looking for it by name, but by the color of the package and where it's located in these convenience stores. And as soon as something gets banned, they just change one ingredient or they change one molecule of the chemical makeup of it, and then they resell it.
It has to do with the order in which you see things in terms of ingredients are percentages. Now, if they're just changing the amount of filler and fragrance, you switch, the concentration of those two, change one from 15 to 10 and the other from 10 to 15. You now, by law, have a new product. And that product is no longer subject to the previous rules.
And I've also been, because I did a little research on this early in the week when my wife said, I think he was high on bath salt. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I did a little research earlier in the week on it. And from my understanding, that is that they also can change the nature of the chemicals. So it's not even just the ingredients that are like the filler, but also the chemicals. So, and these are completely made up names, but oxybipolythene becomes oxytripolythene, and therefore it's a different thing, and now they have to go through the whole process of banning that. So, and no one's really saying, wow, I want that, oxypyrclonin. They say,
they put a different adjunct on the end, and it's essentially the same thing,
And in one store, it might be marketed as plant food, and then in another store, it's marketed as something else. And it's just like you mentioned, it's the colors of the package that. Right, and more importantly, their location in the convenience store, because those are the big places that are selling this. You're not going to find this at a 7-Eleven even necessarily, or like a Raceway or a Hess. You're going to find it in like the local head shops. You're going to find it in the smaller local convenience stores, and they're always in the same location. They're right next to the flavored tobacco and the incense and stuff like that, and then these little packets, and they're sold as, kind of herbal ecstasy, or they're sold as like herbal supplements or energy boosters or sexual stimulants, and the people who use them know the effect it has on them, and so when the product name changes, they know exactly where to go in the store to get the next one that's out. It's very similar to the alcohol that they're creating that's mixed with all this other stuff, that they just keep changing the name and banning it, and they just change it. Yeah, like that. Now, we can blame bath salts for the face chewing in Miami, but then some of these other stories that have come out are even weirder. We have in Maryland, a Morgan State University student by the name of Alexander Kinua was arrested in the attack against his friend, the person that he lived with. Apparently what happened was he had murdered him, and he had him in some storage containers in his basement, parts of his body, including his head and 2 hands, that were found by this Alexander Kinua's brother. And he said that, of course, those aren't human parts, and then the containers disappeared. Well, it turns out that he had actually cut this guy that he lived with up and had ingested portions of his heart and brain, and then placed the rest of his body in a trash bin at a nearby church. And this guy is apparently known for crazy behavior. He posted on his Facebook wall about mass human sacrifices, and fellow students at Morgan State said that he was known as being in his own little world and for preaching. So you've got that typical, college student. That's just a regular college student, right? Talking about mass human sacrifices and eating the people that he lives with.
It's got to be. I work in the MIT area in that campus, and some of the students walking around there, some of the conversations I hear, they're out there.
And this is coming from Moniz.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the guy in Hackensack, New Jersey, who stabbed himself repeatedly with a 12-inch long knife and then threw his intestines at the police as they tried to subdue him. He actually literally pulled his intestines out of his body and threw them at the cops. So I don't know where you want to go from there, Chris.
Well, I mean, I've been
What about the
for...
woman in California that tried to eat the baby's arm, that took the kid right out of the stroller? You didn't hear about that one?
I didn't hear that one, no.
There was also another gentleman that, let's call it, he tried, he didn't try, he actually succeeded in biting off a young man's reproductive organs. There was another man that bit off his wife's lips.
All in the past week
All
or
in
so?
this past week, yes.
And then there was the guy who was throwing children off a balcony and then killed himself.
Yep.
You know, what the hell's going on, Chris?
And I had heard a story about in either Japan or China that a man had a sex change, was able to bring it home, and cooked it and served it up as a delicacy to 5 knowing individuals who paid $250 apiece to eat this man's removed private parts.
Well, that's not really weird. I mean, that's a delicacy.
Yeah, it just gives new meaning to cocktail weenie, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've never tried Japanese filleted penis before?
No, I'm not.
No, me either. I know, we're not going to talk about penises and junk. It's Adam's rule on Southcoast.
I'm thinking back to the movie The Ref, where he says, "Don't eat the penis. It's just garnish."
Yep.
Wonder if it's hard to chew.
My wife had heard earlier in the week about the New Jersey case being also connected to bath salts, and I'm not sure if that was just whoever she happened to hear on the radio, because I've been now searching since he asked me to come on, searching for an article that says that confirms the use of drugs in there, and they only said the man has a history of drug use.
Yeah, the story I said
drug.
Wayne Carter has a history of psychiatric problems. So
Right. And it immediately when I heard the first case, especially as I was looking at some of the impacts that bath salts have on people, as I was thinking back to that old movie with William Hurt, which is, the name is escaping me right now, where he basically gets this strong form of peyote and goes into a deprivation chamber. And
Scanners.
as he, predates even scanners. It's my word. I had it written down and now I don't even find it.
Chops Wood says in the chat room, altered states.
Yeah.
Altered states, exactly. And as he does this, he goes through these various states of dehumanizing. So he goes from I think his first thing, he runs naked through the city and ends up in the zoo and eats something, and then eventually he gets into this kind of like amorphic state where he actually loses all of his humanity and he's kind of this blob of nothingness. And I, as I was reading the details of what some of these drugs are doing, so especially some of these designer synthetic things that they're creating, they seem to act very much like LSD, but then with the same qualities of things like crystal meth. So you're having this like jacked up rush of chemicals to the brain, but then these trips. And it seems to be that we're resorting back to some kind of primitive state. And the best research that I could do on kind of the concept of cannibalism was to look back, at some of the serial killers of the past and some of the work of Jack Levin at Northeastern and things that they've done in terms of researching that. And it seems like there's this very primal thing that is still inside of us to cannibalize.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned primal, and we just had a question from Low Battery Dave in the chat room who wants to know if a drug can eliminate the higher functions and only allow the primitive primate responses. And
Yes.
it sounds like that's exactly
Yes.
what's happening with these.
Yes.
Yeah, and that seems to be one of the objectives, at least of some of these drugs in their purest state, is to get rid of what's now and get rid of what's current and what's pressuring you and expand your mind to take in things that you normally wouldn't. And so, people have been using these kinds of things for vision quests for centuries, if not millennia, to get in touch with nature and to find that kind of like the spiritual connection. And these seem like those kinds of things, not technically, but figuratively on steroids. And so it might make sense to unlock something. So I don't think any of these people necessarily were cannibals and this just made them free to do it. I think it's actually unlocking some part of human nature. And I think if you look at the age of the guy in Maryland, it's very similar to, and if you have any people who specialize in psychology, from what I understand, that's about the time when schizophrenic breaks happen, in your, between, the ages of like 16 and 22 are the most common times to have, because his behavior had dramatically changed. And so when you look at behavior that's dramatically changed, you look at A, drug influence, B, any other kind of changes, and both of the people in that case seem to have these really unclear criminal things that were going on, although the murderer himself seems to be much more current. And then you look at psychological breaks, and that's a perfect time for schizophrenia to come in, and then once that hits, you really can lose what was you and you become something different.
Can I play
And
devil's
so
advocate? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, can I play devil's advocate here just for a minute? With all these outbreaks, it is coming upon a week after the release of the Diablo 3 video game. It is on the heels of Hollywood being big into zombies now. They went from vampires to zombies and all this stuff going on. Could that have a possible influence where we are seeing some younger people who are experimenting with different types of drugs? They see these movies and then they want to reenact. It's like after Alien happened, everybody was afraid of alien invasions and things of that nature. Could that?
Yeah, I can completely agree with that. You have both this kind of natural instinct that might be there, that might be pre-Homo sapien, along with a very, very heavy current media influence of it. And so it's kind of like this rotisserie of either thing that can kind of be influencing, or a combination of them as well. So I would completely agree with that. It's very similar to people who were dropping out back in the 60s and 70s, who were having guides who were using their modern media to kind of navigate these trips, and people were sharing visions that were the same.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out has taken on a whole new meaning then.
It really has. I mean, and it is kind of the interesting and intriguing and maybe even beneficial work of those chemists back then that are now being kind of, I hate to say bastardized, but it's into something new. It's all those people who are playing around with chemicals. They're all dangerous.
Really?
Yeah,
and
sorry
I
to
wouldn't meet
disappoint
one
you,
in a,
Moniz.
I wouldn't even meet one in a supposed UFOs sighting location. So, but there you go. But it is this kind of, and like I said, Moniz can probably talk to this more. It is, we can mark and we can document the physical and psychological effects of these things in the controlled laboratory situation. But then when they touch upon, the, like you were saying, the media stuff and other things, we don't know the prolonged effect or impact on these things.
No, we don't. We really don't. And when you get people using material that is not generally designed to be put into the body,
right?
There's little medical study done on that, because we're not testing to see what happens in the body, at least not in that way. And that, they'll check for, toxicity to see what happens if you ingest it, how toxic things, but it's awful hard to get, test animals to snort the stuff, or, which is actually how this stuff is done. The best way that they do this with the bath salts is snorting, and it goes through the membranes of the nose directly into the brain. Whereas if you eat it or digest it, the chemicals take on a different form, and it won't really do the exact effect that you're looking for. What's got me perplexed is how did some of these individuals figure out to do this in the first place? To actually
too much time in their hands.
Well, I mean, specifically the bath salts and those things are marketed that way. They're marketed to do it to them, and if they're not specifically on the label saying to snort it, it's not a huge leap for anyone who is into doing those kinds of things to go very quickly from burning to ingesting to snorting to shooting. It's a logical progression of most really hardcore drugs, including alcohol.
I mean, you can inject alcohol into your body. Yeah, is it?
Right.
That's not going to change the effects of the alcohol or the chemical makeup of it. But in order to take something that's in a crystalline form and try and inject it, you have to dissolve it or melt it down into something, and that I know changes the structure of the compound. And that's what I'm saying. If it does something in one phase of its existence and altering it, you're not guaranteeing the same reaction to the body by doing it.
I think those people are willing to experiment on that Moniz and see what will happen if they do it.
Oh yeah,
and like you're saying, that's where some of these are coming in now. I don't know if Matt, if you can speak to the FDA process with any of these, because it would seem especially with how quickly they change.
Oh, I
is
can
there
definitely
FDA
speak to the
approval of
process.
these things, or?
Now, like I said, these things weren't designed to be put into the body. There's a whole different set of regulations for things that you use externally versus things you use internally. And I've worked in both kinds of labs. Things that you use externally, the materials are less stringently controlled in terms of their testing. The only effects that they look for is, does it cause any physical effects to the body? Like, does it burn your eyes if it gets on your eyes? Does it burn your skin? Is it toxic if you eat it in an amount over this level? That's basically what they're looking at. It's the basic physical effects. They're not looking to see, does it get you high or does it do this or that, because that's a drug application. And these people aren't making something that's a quote-unquote drug application. So the testing is quite different, as well as the regulations. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, completely does. Completely does. And it's and then the FDA seems to be concerned as well with the things that we plan on ingesting with long-term impacts.
Yeah. I mean, things aren't as actually stringent as they used to be. Believe it or not, a lot of the material that we eat and drink today, as well as the new stuff that we are developing, isn't as stringently controlled as it used to be, believe it or not. Certain things are.
Actually, I work in the food distribution industry as my regular daytime job, and the new laws and stuff that are coming through are unbelievable. We've really had to change how the warehouse is operated, almost, where we lock every door. We have to have the food's got to be kept in certain locations. It's got to be monitored. It's got to be temperature monitored. And
but you're talking
else.
Externally. I'm talking about the physical material itself.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I think that the point that Doug made a little while ago is kind of the key to it. No matter what these substances are that people are ingesting and taking into their body in whatever form or fashion, it is the cultural influence right now that is going to determine where that. I mean, it's one thing they're going to have the trip, and I think that the media and culture is what's going to influence the direction that trip goes in. And I think that we're seeing, just as he said, we're seeing an infatuation right now with the darker side, the zombie culture, the evil culture, and we're seeing that being played out now in these psychotic breaks of people or in these bad trips of people.
Well, I think the other thing to note is that in both the Miami case and the Maryland case, both of the people involved had recently gone through a religious conversion. The gentleman in Maryland, much more active in terms of getting in touch with animal culture and animal spirits and things like that, and the gentleman in Miami, a Christian religious conversion. But both of them had just very recently undergone some very intense religious turnover in their brain. And so I think, both of those people, it would seem, might not have been as influenced by the zombie culture as maybe some of the other ones that Moniz was talking about that I haven't researched. And so it's almost as if something might have been unlocked in them, and then maybe influenced by the media. But it's just interesting that in both of those cases, and there's not enough really out there about the New Jersey case yet, But both of those gentlemen in Maryland and Miami had both recently had very, very intense religious experiences and changed because of those.
Well, Moniz made the point as we were driving in and we were discussing this. He mentioned that this type of stuff happens all the time, and that there just isn't as much media attention paid to it. But what happened was the zombie face-eating story broke, and that just kind of captured people's imagination. So now more of these stories made the news wires. Chris, is somebody who looks into this stuff all the time. I mean, how often are you hearing these types of stories? Because Moniz, I disagree about it happening all the time. I think there may be pockets of it.
I think that this is not as much of a case like in the copycat effect. They refer to it as kind of the shark syndrome, where when there's a shark attack, all of a sudden there seems to be shark attacks, and there's no increased number of shark attacks. It just happens to be that every single one is being covered because one big one is covered.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I agree in part that these kinds of things are not uncommon. Like, they do happen, and they happen on a fairly consistent basis. But the difference in this is that those stories are so sensationalized that with our modern media, when something like that happens, it hits, and people hear it. And so, therefore, I don't think it's a case of ones that wouldn't get exposure this week getting exposure because of the Miami case, but rather, maybe we're looking for those stories, or people are connecting those stories, but I do agree that they happen more frequently than we really like to think that they do. So maybe the media is putting a twist on it and grouping them together so we can find them easily, but they're there every week.
The media controlling information? That doesn't happen.
Well, it's the goal of them to take sensationalized case one and mix it with not so sensationalized case A, B, B, C, and D to form a trend to offer some kind of context for it, right? I guess that's the nicest way I can put it. But the fact of the matter is that these cases are happening and they are covered, and I come across them fairly frequently just in the keywords that I use for Ghost Village. Never mind the ones that slip through the cracks. So any week you can find that there's someone eating someone, and oftentimes it happens in other countries much more frequently than it happens here. But you are seeing them grouped together because people are kind of making more of it. But I don't think the frequency of the case. In other words, I don't think there's more cannibals today than there were last month. It just happens to be that that people are grouping them together for us.
Well, there's too many vegans today to have that many cannibals break out. All right, well, Chris, we thank you for joining us and giving us the Balzano Breakdown. Whenever people go crazy, you're always the first person that we think of.
Thank you very much. I like to remain as crazy as possible. And, if it happens and it's messed up, it's going to happen here in Florida first. We are the testing ground for all things crazy.
But more the Lakeland area than anything else. Our apologies to our fans in Lakeland.
As that was happening, I was moving through Lakeland, so there you go. Maybe
I don't think it's not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. All right, well, thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you real soon. Now, Chris, before we go, we have about 45 seconds here, but we do have a new venture coming up that we want to let people know about, right?
Yeah, we're opening up kind of a companion piece to Spooky Southcoast on Spooky TV. We're hoping to launch it this week, Wednesday, at 10 o'clock, where we're kind of tentative on we're calling it the Spooky Lounge right now, but it's basically our exploration of things we talk about on Spooky Southcoast all week, but we're doing it on Spooky TV so we can kind of really get into things, and we can kind of not worry as much if we're offending some members of the audience, because people are going to have to want to listen to us, but it's going to kind of be talking about all the things we talk about on Spooky Southcoast, but a little bit more uncensored.
And you got to be there to experience it. So stay tuned.
And you have to be there to experience it.
Stay tuned to the website. We'll have more information. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, gentlemen.
Take care.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Yep.
And our thanks to Doug Engler of LiveParanormal.com for joining us. We'll be back next week with more. So until then, for Matt Moniz, for Doug Engler, for Chris Balzano, I'm Tim Weisberg. We want you all to stay spooktacular.
Rest assured, listener, that my time here has not been easy, and what you have